We oftentimes joke about neoconservative Bill Kristol and how he's just such a warmonger. He never shuts up. He always seems to be calling for intervention somewhere. But it's really not even a joke when we talk about it. It's actually really, really dangerous. So this fool just wrote an article on Monday begging for more war. I kid you not. He just fulfills every single caricature of himself that exists, every single stereotype about him. He just raises his hand and says, yes, it's totally true. I'm admitting to the stereotype the left has made of me. He said, quote, American war weariness isn't new. Using it as an excuse to avoid maintaining our defenses or shouldering our responsibilities isn't new either. But that doesn't make it admirable. Really? War weariness isn't admirable? War weariness basically means let's be really, really careful and really, really hesitant about when we want to use our military and when we want to get into war. How can you say that that's not admirable? Doing the opposite of that isn't admirable. To want to use the military very quickly and want to rush to war very quickly and want to always go to that option, that's not admirable. I can't believe, this guy is basically saying, I am not on the page of using war as a last resort. I would like to use war as a first resort, or maybe a second resort. What a silly, silly man. And think about how few people agree with him. Nobody agrees with him. This is like Bill Kristol and Dick Cheney could basically sit in a room and jerk each other off because they're the only people that actually have this opinion. He continues, quote, a war-weary public can be awakened and rallied. Indeed, events are right now doing the awakening. All that's needed is the rallying, and the turnaround can be fast. He's almost flat out saying there, let's do propaganda to try to get the United States in another war. And when it's Bill Kristol, you never even know which place specifically he's talking about. We've all known for the longest time he wants war with Iran. He's been very clear about that. But now with what's going on with Russia, who knows? Maybe he means we should get involved in a war with Russia to protect Crimea and Ukraine. I don't even think he really cares which war we start, as long as we're at war. He just used the word awakened to describe getting people to go to war, as if that's like an enlightenment moment. Like we wake up and go, you know what's a great idea? Somebody get me an M16. I feel like lighting some motherfuckers up today. Yeah, that's not awakened. That would be darkness. Awakened and enlightened and terms like that should be used for the opposite of war, for finding lasting peace. But this guy flips it exactly on its head. When he says that all that's needed is rallying to try to get people behind a cause, he's admitting, well, this isn't popular, and there's not a good argument for it, but I want to do it, so let's do mass propaganda like we did with Iraq and like we did with Afghanistan, and then we'll be able to send young men and women to die. Bill Kristol is a really loathsome guy, and every time I hear him talk, I don't use this argument often because I don't think it's a very convincing one, but with certain people it really does make sense to invoke it. If you really love war this much, dude, pick up a gun. Go to the front line. Send your kids, if you have any, to go fight. Send your family members, your friends to go fight. If you care so deeply about the cause, what are you doing sitting in a nice studio somewhere that's air-conditioned, watching CNN and penning an article? What are you doing, man? That's too much comfort. You got microwavable food that could be ready in a minute. You got everything you could need at your fingertips. And your ass is saying that poor kids, young men and women, need to go overseas and die for some abstract cause that you don't even lay out in a concrete way? You sound like a child. You sound like a toddler. Only 17% of the American people are still in favor of the war in Afghanistan, which, by the way, we are still in. Okay? That's like, that's less than Vietnam when it was least popular. That's less than Iraq when it was least popular. But Bill Kristol doesn't even acknowledge that, well, we still got a war going on right now. He's like, oh, that's not enough. I need another war. My dick gets hard when we're fighting multiple wars at once, so please let me attack somewhere else. Let me send other young men and women to die. I can't even tell you how many times I've said this on this program. I've said it earlier today in just the last segment. The only time the United States military should ever be used is if the homeland is about to be attacked, if there is imminent danger against us. Outside of that, shut the fuck up. You can't ask people to sacrifice their lives if there's not that kind of a serious bar that's set. Like, oh, well, if you don't go fight, we all might die. All right, well, in that case, grab me an M16. Let's go, baby. But in other cases, he's like, yeah, something's kind of off in Iran. I mean, they're not doing a nuclear program, and the UN said they're complying with our deal, but fucking attack them anyway. That's a good argument to just go in there, send the military in. What's going on in Ukraine and Crimea is a good argument to start World War III, to have the U.S. fight Russia, two big superpowers. Yeah, Crimea is 60% ethnic Russian, and they kind of already want to be part of Russia, and they became part of Russia, but why don't we go fight a fucking war over it anyway? Come on, Bill Kristol. Come on, man. I've never seen anybody with weaker arguments than his.